You're listening to Systemic Error Podcast. The failure was designed.
Shouting match erupts as white supremacist Jan 6 rioter clashes with black Republican, based on an article by David Edwards. Trump didn't free a dissident. He rehabilitated a street fascist. The power behind the microphone. The relevant fact in this story is not that a debate erupted. It is that Jake Lang, a man charged with beating police officers with a baseball bat on January 6, was pardoned by Donald Trump on Trump's first day back in office. That is institutional power in plain view. A president used the office to restore status and mobility to a man openly practicing racial and religious hatred in public. Everything that followed flows from that decision. Lang did not become dangerous by accident, and he was not misunderstood into this role. He was enabled by the state at the highest level, then allowed to turn his pardon into a roaming hate campaign against Muslims, Jews, LGBTQ people, and Black Americans. The debate was not the story. The source frames the incident as a clash on a progressive debate platform between Lang and Black conservative Austin Julio Broughton. That is context, not the point. The point is that a white nationalist was handed a national stage by an ecosystem that still treats extremist spectacle as just another form of discourse. Broughton's presence matters only insofar as it shows how much labor Black conservatives are asked to do inside a political culture that keeps inviting racists in through the front door. He was not debating an argument in good faith. He was confronting a man who had already spent months staging hate as performance. The misdirection is the point. Lang's language is not confused, and the source should not let it pass as crude provocation. He is repeating a familiar authoritarian script, racial hierarchy framed as social diagnosis, demographic anxiety dressed up as cultural concern, violence recast as self-defense. Assimilation here is a mask for domination. The article also makes clear that Lang's campaign has been documented across at least 19 public acts of hate. That is not a loose pattern of edgy behavior. It is sustained political messaging. The misdirection would be to treat this as one man's instability rather than a predictable outcome of a movement that rewards public cruelty and then calls it grievance. Trump's pardon was an authorization signal. The pardon matters because it does more than erase legal consequence. It tells sympathizers that the state will absorb their violence if they act in service of the right politics. Trump did not merely forgive a rioter. He signaled that January 6 was not disqualifying so long as the target was democracy itself. That is why Lang can now swagger from one public humiliation ritual to another, from a mosque to AIPAC headquarters to a BET Awards protest, all while performing the same basic doctrine: white grievance as entitlement. The state created room for him, and the movement around Trump keeps furnishing him with an audience. Blackness as the target, not the topic. Lang's attack on Black people is not an argument about culture. It is a demand that Black existence remain legible only on white terms. His obsession with heritage Americans, Black culture, and white culture is the old authoritarian trick of narrowing citizenship into a racial test and then pretending the test is neutral. Broughton's rejoinder cut to the actual history. Black people were not smushed into anything by Democrats as a generic abstraction. They were forced into a political order built by white supremacy, exclusion, and state violence. Lang's words expose the deeper pattern. The right is not defending culture. It is trying to reassert hierarchy and call it identity. The larger pattern. This story is about what happens when a major political figure uses the powers of office to launder extremism. The pardon was not an isolated act of mercy. It was part of a broader regime of permission in which fascist aesthetics are normalized. Anti-Black racism is staged as debate, and public hatred is rewarded with attention instead of consequence. The democratic response cannot be to pretend this is fringe noise. It is an institutional problem produced by institutional choices. When the state protects and amplifies open racial antagonists, the issue is not a breakdown in civility. It is power choosing its clients. You've been listening to Systemic Error. Thanks to Raw Story for today's article, with the automated voice of Ryan. Thanks for listening.